AI programs are going to give you another tool. So it's like, hey, I want a vent for the side of a Camaro that doesn't look like the other guy's vents to the side of the Camaro. So you take a bunch of pictures, you load them in there, and you go, give me some alternatives, and they'll churn that stuff out. But
even though the fit and finish level keeps raising, is a lot of higher end builds start looking extremely, got to be careful here, sterile and soulless to me.
Process. You look at a English wheel car versus a tree stump and a sandbag beat car, and so you get a different set of curves with the wheel because you're rolling and constructing the car out of separate shapes. That gets a different thing.
Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you some stories.
Welcome to another episode of Car Guy Confessions with Jeff Smith. This time, Larry Erickson.
Whoa. Yeah. Big dog.
Big dog in the house.
Not so
Buddy
much
Steve here,
dog.
So put me up for a week. Thank you so much for putting up this long. I mean, I was
Crashing at
wandering
Casa
around the
de
streets, and he
Strope.
said, come in off the streets, dude.
Yeah.
You don't have to sleep in a gutter.
Better.
So, yeah, which was wonderful. Yeah. So, listen, we just got to dive right in because there's, a million stories, and we only have time for probably one or two.
Four.
So, shall we just dive in? Well, okay.
start with?
Let's talk a little bit about your history. Just condense.
I was going to say,
condense
some
it down,
people
because
may
some people
not
may
know
who Larry Erickson
is.
My
That's
dad
true.
drove me. No.
Really?
Now, I got this from my father, this car thing, in the form of a 36 Ford. So somewhere along the line, I was reading one of Pete Peterson's magazines, probably Motor Trend, figured out that there was a place called Art Center, went there, was told pretty much you should never draw hot rods.
Really?
Not by Art Center. No, they never said that. But just the general perception was, let's get serious,
Oh, so they didn't consider what you were doing serious.
No, I think the general industry belief was that the aftermarket and what the aftermarket does is one arena, and we're in this different arena. But then the more time you spend in the industry, the more you found out that Dave Holes had a 49 Ford and it was chopped, it wasn't sectioned, and Chuck Jordan knew George Barris, and everybody was hooked up on the backside. But when you walked through the door, you thought, don't use the H word,
Right. And what is this time frame?
This time frame, it was really about 85 when things started to change. Because to give you an example, when we went to Cadillac to get a North Star for the Aluma Coupe, it was like, why would we ever do that?
Okay,
now
I'm going to have to pause him.
Somebody
you gotta
way
wait.
down the stroke.
Not everybody out here knows. I know this story. So Aluma Coupe was a one-off street rod that was created from nothing at Hot Rods by Boyd. It didn't start life as a 32 Ford or
Started
a
as a
model.
clay model.
And you penned it.
Right.
Yeah,
You
so-
drew it up and it was a scale first, right? Did you make
we
a
clay
scale
model
piece?
the scale car in the back room of a rented house on the east side of Detroit.
So there was a clay model of that car?
Just a scale one, yeah.
A scale?
Yeah.
Where is that now?
The clay model's gone, but we got the mold in the garage. I'll cut you a deal. No, we got fiberglass mold of it.
So car built by Hot Rod by Boyd. Right?
What's that?
The car was built by Hot Rod by Boyd.
Yep.
Then the Aluma Coupe.
That's the Aluma Coupe.
Yeah.
Right, but that had a Mitsubishi motor.
Right. So what happened when they couldn't get the Cadillac? Somebody pointed Mitsubishi at Boyd, or Boyd met up with somebody, and they put a motor in it. And then I got hauled to the front office, So, because somebody, not a Cadillac, but somebody at Chevrolet took offense to it.
Fence.
Yeah. Because somebody wrote an article, made it sound like I was in on the motor deal. And when Boyd said, hey, I got a chance to get a Mitsubishi, I said, Boyd, do whatever's good for your business, It didn't, we offered a Cadillac, they didn't take it. But then when Chip went to work for him, which was, a few years after that, they actually put a Cadillac in it was a Roadster. Chuck or I can't remember the name it was. Anyway, it was done a little bit after that. So, but all those things were coming together at the same time because the Plymouth Prowler had not come out yet. Okay, Boyd was working on it. You guys Peterson, Hot Rod, you ran an article on Boyd, a Person of the Year, and that thing was that picture of the full size was in the background.
Oh, okay.
They hadn't even, and Marcel bent the panels.
Okay.
And at that time, and it really was Tom Gale at Chrysler. Tom Gale, head of Chrysler Design. He okayed the Prowler, or pushed it through, along with Bob Lutz. And that's really when that tip over of It's Okay to Hot Rod came in. And also, Hot Rod was, going from. I mean, you guys were at the center of this.
Yeah, it was an amazing time.
It was coming out of the closet, so to speak. So, and and you guys, Peterson or whatever the representative did the thing on Wall Street. They dragged Cadillac out there.
Yep.
And I think Cadzilla was there. And so it was a time, and Bruce Myers was restoring cars out in Beverly Hills, and people were waking up. And
I was the kid at home in Apple Lake in New York reading about all of this. I hadn't moved out here. If we're talking 80, by that time 87, 88, right?
Yeah. Well, Cadzilla was 88, finished in 80, just the beginning of 89.
I'm in college.
Yeah.
Waiting for my new issue to come while it's snowing.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this evolution you're talking about the big three getting involved and providing drivetrains, and you guys breaking the story. Yeah. That there's.
And Gray played a huge part.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've always said.
Gray Baskerville is who he's talking about.
Not name dropping here. It's just, your old dad. Yeah.
So bitchin'.
Harry Bradley used to say a car didn't exist till it was in a magazine. Okay, and sort of a general statement, but Gray would latch onto these personalities, and he put my picture in the article on Boyd, and after that, Gray was just a seminal figure, and I identified a lot of people, not just
So great history, but. I just learned that you're building a Bonneville car.
Well, a built along with the village. It takes
the village that comes along with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which part are you playing? No.
I've got the idiot part.
I'm one of those guys that that person that does concept art is one thing, but to physically build a car, whole different deal.
Yes, I've had many discussions with Stanford about that.
Yeah, and paint
that looks awesome. I don't think that's going to actually drive down the road.
And even though Chip is a switch hitter, a lot of folks never get to the quality level that their art gets to. So, I've been constantly learning. So I've worked with a group of metal shapers and race car builders and stuff like that, and sort of I'll make a drawing for them and they'll work on my car, that kind of thing like that. But no, Bonneville's like, the Aluma Coupe was patterned after the Chrisman Coupe. Not literally, but figuratively, the Chrisman
the starting
Coupe,
point.
which, was Chrisman's little 5-window 32, 240 Ford hoods stuck together.
Yeah.
It was a bullet, And how those guys ever climbed in those things with a injected Hemi in the back seat, this far from their head, and then went to and change.
And decided that was a healthy, good idea.
Yeah, hey, let's do this again next year.
This is
like fun. Yeah, let's do that.
Well, then, World War II changed their parameters of what's a good idea.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
This is nowhere near life-threatening.
Yeah.
So let's make it more life-threatening.
Are you kidding, Brian? Did you remember what we did last year?
Yeah.
People were shooting
at
us.
and there's no one shooting at us. It's got to be better.
There's nothing to hit out here.
That's
you just stand on the throttle and point it.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
So
Maybe
this is
blow up.
what kind of a car?
Roadster class is the oldest class. That's the one that started it all.
This is the one that was in Rodder's Journal.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, bare metal.
Where have you
pushed together? Anyway,
so in Iowa.
Touche, sir.
Yeah, there you go.
Touche.
It's a Model 8 cowl, so it's got a 6/27/1928 date stamp on it. It was dug out of a ditch in North Dakota by Paul Beck, who used to pull all these cars and get them back to Michigan where they rusted in 5 minutes. So we started with a cowl. We added some aftermarket quarters from Brookville and stuff like that. And then a lot of metal shapers made the front end. And the Roadster class is very specific in the overall length and what you can do and what you can't do. But to me, they still look like hot rods. And I just wanted to make a cool looking hot rod. And you can be, I mean, literally it runs with an inch of ground clearance. In fact, the hard part was getting it in the building.
In the building?
Yeah,
Oh,
because every ramp
sure.
over. And you can put as much weight in them as you want, and you're just trying to make it as aerodynamic as possible.
So what is going to be the final driveline?
Well, there's a
there was
bunch
a
of them.
couple-
One of the things to do is you not only switch drivers out there, so, you know, lots of guys drive and gals drive, you know, and you not only switch drivers and crew, you know, but you also switch motors. So we've got a couple motors. We've got a regular small block, traditional aftermarket World Products block, AFR heads, usual routine, single carburetor, and that's our learning motor. You know, it's a dry sump motor, so you shouldn't, you know, buy any parts on your way through your licensing process. But up there, it's a lot harder to go fast. You know, years ago, one of the Formula One teams came up there, and those guys know how to go fast.
Sure.
And they got to Bonneville, and it didn't work like they thought it would. You know, so you got to go up there and learn that
Racing
stuff.
on the salt too, which makes a big difference.
Well, yeah,
And
somebody
at
said it's like
5,000
snow.
feet. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
guys in Iowa are probably good
Yes,
at it.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah. But so we got that motor, and then we got a Buick V6. It's a variant of the IndyCar Buick V6s from the 80s.
Back in the 80s, yeah.
And then we're also going to run an iron class. There's a traditional class for pre-74 casting small block parts.
Ooh.
And
Pre 74, so that would be like small journal, small block Chevys and things
right.
like that. 327s.
And right on the borderline are things like angle plug heads and stuff like that, you know. So we're going to configure those motor situations to hopefully run a decent speed against a record, but most of the things go up
Did you
have
have a
good
different
fun.
motor for a while, like a Mercedes motor? Or
Well, I started with that Mercedes motor, but you know, I quickly learned that the set of bearings cost more than a whole motor.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
kind of scratched that one off the list.
Yeah.
Sold it on eBay. You know,
So do you have an engine for the pre 74 class yet?
we've got a block and a set of heads, and they're somewhere circulating in Southern California, getting ported.
Okay.
You know, and which is a little bit witch doctor. So, but yeah, that's probably a couple years out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, it's a lot of fun.
And
you
is,
meet,
and is
you
there a
know,
displacement limit or just?
Yeah, it's 377 on iron class, and
Okay.
and then the other ones they got a ladder on them, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's a plan to sort of that or bowling, you know. So hey,
nice.
And what
Sporty Kings.
what transmission?
It's got a Jericho 4-speed in it, so good.
Yeah.
Something you can't break, and
Right,
you still
right.
get to roll a few gears. None of that air shifted 7-speed. That's for the rich guys, you know.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, though. And
Well,
how long ago did this start?
Too long ago, 2008.
Okay.
You know,
That's
But-
really not that long ago for something like this.
It's funny when we started. Tony Thacker we were going through some little car thing, and he said, "Just buy a car." And I said, "But I want to build a car." And there was a car there, that had run for sale for a tenth of what we've put in this one. But building stuff and making stuff that just doesn't go away.
Yeah.
That's what that room's about. Some pretty sane people have spent way too much time at Steve's place.
Yeah, it's my fault.
No, not your fault at the time. They just have something they got to get out of them.
Sure.
That's what they want to do.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hey, we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP-bolts.com. We got a fantastic little backdrop here. They make an outstanding series of bolts, almost anything you would need for engines, chassis, things like that. In fact, we were at lunch today, and a guy asked you about the bolt on the back of your shirt, and and I said, well, it's really about a head bolt. They neck the stem down of the bolt on a small block Chevy head bolt, so the clamp load is even across 3 different head bolt lengths on a small block Chevy. And, so that's the kind of technology that you get out of ARP. And we've all got stories on all that stuff.
For a
but,
translation of what he said, call ARPbolts.com.
but the message is that you can't get any better than that.
No, you
So
cannot.
There you go.
Nope.
Excellent.
And then just check them out at ARP-bolts.com. We'd like to thank our friends at InTheGarageMedia.com. They have 3 fantastic magazines. They've got Classic Truck Performance, they have Modern Rotting, and my favorite, All Chevy Performance with Nick, my buddy Nick, is the editor.
Biased.
So
Correct.
yes, of course.
Yes.
But they're doing print media, which
Yes.
is of course our favorite. So
Tangible
color and
magazine.
everything.
in color and everything, and you can get your car on the cover of one of those books, which is
Right.
a fun
that's a
deal.
lot.
Great
Yeah.
tech.
Great
Written
tech.
by you
know,
and others
not always
that are
written by me, but yeah. Yeah.
Not
yeah.
always written by me.
That's right.
Just
So
pick it
check
up and
them out
read it.
at InTheGarageMedia.com, and they're our friends, and they will thank you.
I have shared with you before, and many people who are close to me know that my favorite car that sits on this earth is Cadzilla. It is my favorite car. I absolutely love that car, and Billy's a friend too, so it even makes it cooler because he lets me sit in it. But I have complimented you before on that, but I'm always, because I like to fiddle with design, you know, I come up with my own cockamamie ideas. How did the proportions of that come to be through your hand and drawing? Where did you decide how small that car is actually going to be compared to what it started with?
30 feet long.
And it isn't.
Yeah.
And did the idea start as an artwork, and then to make it real, it wound up being that size? Yeah. How did that process happen?
Well,
I'm being
all
very
of those
selfish.
cars,
I want this answer.
all those cars and almost every car on the road, even in digital with Photoshop and everything, they come out of a sketch that has exaggerated proportions. And it's like distilling something down to what are the important things in it. And when you look at the sketches that made that original 48 Cadillac Series 62, sedanette, there were Bill Mitchell sketches and there were a couple other guys. And I remember I had gone to Dave Holz's retirement party, and he had a whole bunch of those sketches up on the walls.
Dave Holz
was was second in charge of GM Design. Okay. He was an old custom guy.
Cool.
And I remember looking at him, and Jack Chisenhall, actually, who was good friends with Billy, he called me up, and we'd met at the Nationals, and he said, "Hey, Billy's thinking of doing a Cadillac." He goes, "What would you do?" And he said, just write something down. And I thought, why write it down? Why don't you just, make a sketch? And the sedanette is the most hot rod and custom like the 48, 49 because it's got this long profile of a back. It doesn't look like a normal production car. And the body side's very clean, which is great for sectioning and cutting and things like that.
It makes it easy to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you look at those old Bill Mitchell sketches, they all look like a locomotive hurtling down the track where the front end's really big and wide and just wicked, And so I did a sketch that was actually a pretty high view of it, but I just put this very teardrop roof on it and rounded the windshield and all that other stuff. And I sent it to Jack. I gave him a little brief description. I said 48 because you can go to the NSRA events, because at the time, there was a cutoff. And in 1988, when we started that thing, it was still a very firm line. Yes. I said, do it with that. I said, do it in a way that's different. And at one time, we actually had a Hemi with a Potvin blower on it because I'd been doing some stuff for Dean Moon, and I was just really jammed on those blowers hanging out there.
Yeah, they're very cool.
So I did a high 3/4 sketch, and that was the only sketch ever done for that car. That was it.
Is that the one where the front wheels would turn like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's burned into my head. I know.
So then
It's
Jack
just the wheels were like almost like Super Tricks. They had like a solid with a fastener around it.
Little ding, ding, ding. Yeah. And so
I have no life.
Then and then
honest disclosure. All right.
And then Jack called me back and said, Billy wants to meet on a car. He wants to meet on a car. In fact, it was Philippe
and by the way, Jack Chisenhall owns Vintage Air.
Yeah, Philippe Don.
Well, you just retired, so
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at
Close
that
enough.
time, he owned Vintage Air.
At the time, he was.
Anyway, so Philippe and a bunch of guys got together, and what I learned is Billy did everything in a grand way, so you got a whole bunch of people together, And then Jack goes, well, we got to meet with some guys down at the NSR Nationals. He goes, what can you bring that would give guys a better idea of the car? And I said, well, do a full-size drawing of it. So I actually did the drawing in the Cadillac studios on the back side of the wall.
Really?
Because you can't have it up on the daytime job. So GM had 22 studios, and they're all separated by these walls with these dropped boards that would hold a full-size car sketch. And that's how they developed the design.
Okay.
So I did one of that Cadillac, and I really started out trying to get that feel of those sketches that generated it in the first place. It made it big. So I left the front end almost stock height, sectioned the hood a little bit.
So is it safe to say it was just stated with Art Deco?
Yeah,
That's
Art
that
Deco
line,
tends,
that train thing
yeah,
you're talking about?
that streamline, all that kind of stuff like that. Art Deco gets a lot of things thrown on it when you say it.
Right.
But, in a lot of cases, it was a distilled shape, down to something simple.
Sure.
And, you look at Cadillacs in 55, 56, 57, they got a lot more complicated. The 48, 49, 50 were real simple. So I flattened out all the glass on it. And this was a telling point because Jack had figured out all the shops that could build it. And at that time, there were like 3. Now there's like 3 in every state, But at that time, it was down to 3, and Boyd was one of them.
Sure.
And so Boyd was there at the Nationals, and he came in, and Billy looked at the drawing, and I'd flatten the glass planes out because in Detroit, we made one-off glass, but I didn't think anybody, a hot rod shop could do it. And Boyd, I remember his first time I met him, he says, Billy goes, how come it looks different than the sketch? And I said, I'll flatten the glass out. And Boyd goes, I can make compound glass. And I said, you can make compound glass? Smart ass kid. And he goes, yeah, this place in Sweden makes it for us. And I said, okay, you guys come back in the morning. So I cut the whole full side apart, peeled the top off it, and luckily the conference room had this real ornate floor pattern in the carpet. So when I dropped the dies, nobody could tell. And I airbrushed in a different top because I knew somebody was going to think something about it. And that was a full size that was hanging in Boyd's shop for longest time. Wow. But no, it was without Craig Neff and Boyd's shop at that time, there wasn't anybody better in the world. I mean, those guys, everybody from floor sweeper to Boyd, they had it. They were just on it, Yep. They put that thing together in 6 months.
Just amazing.
Yeah. So,
a seminal car like that.
Well, it was a lot of fun, but it worked on a lot of things that were going on. It resonated that, Boyd had this simple thing going, just distill the car down to these key lines, and Tom started a lot of that. Tom Taylor started a lot of that, and so there was a lot of things kind of merging together, and people were taking hot rods more seriously. Whether it was an article in the LA Times about, fortunate individuals who could have any car they wanted, and they'd rather drive their Mercury than a flat, whatever. And I think also, and that all kind of drove folks like Tom Gale. I don't know why Tom Gale decided to do the Prowler, and it may not have been Tom. It may have been somebody that worked for him, But Chip's graduate program, which was a hemisphere,
right.
And all these things were coming down at sort of the same moment in time, So anyway, that was it. But it was great. We would go out every 3 weeks. I'd leave the studio at GM at 11 o'clock, go to the airport, fly to LA, get here about 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Really?
We'd go down to Boyd's shop. I'd go first, and then Craig Neff and I would kind of move things around. So the first time Craig had the sheet metal together, the car's sitting like this, and it's got little dorky wheels on it. And I said, we got to fix this. So we just took the jack and moved things around, And we did that for every 3 weeks for about 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then everybody and Billy would want to go, go to some crazy restaurant someplace.
Yep.
We'd be all grunged out and stuff. And
So at the time at GM, what were you working on?
92 to 92 Seville and El Dorado. They were really heavy programs.
Okay.
And so I was in Cadillac Studio, which was ironic.
Yeah.
And
But it was almost like 2 personalities, right?
yeah, Harry called me up one time. And he said, hey, I think we got a motor for the car. Because when we decided we weren't going to do the Hemi, we said, well, what's the next best thing? A 500-inch Cadillac.
Sure.
Biggest motor ever made,
Yeah.
in modern times. And So Harry got on the phone. He knew somebody that knew somebody. And they found this Cadillac motor. And, Cadillac had long since stopped building 500s. Mm-hmm. And so I got a call from Harry. He says, hey, there's this guy. Call him up. He's going to look at this motor. So I go over and look at this motor, and it's just a dirt ball motor. Just, looked like it was pulled out of a salvage job. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, why do you still have it? And he goes, oh, it's part of the presidential limousine in 1974 or whatever the heck it was. Really? And it was just a mule motor, but he goes, we keep all the documentation and stuff that go back with those projects, really? And he goes, but they're probably going to get rid of it. And so Billy calls me up and he goes, they said they got some motor for this car and you looked at it. I said, Billy, it was in the presidential limousine project. I said, it wasn't in the limousine, but it was in the project. And he goes, oh, that's great. And then later on, Art Christman cleaned it up. I ran into Art someplace at a car event, and I said, you did the Cadillac motor. He goes, oh, that piece of, the word he used. And I said, well, was it a little worn out? He goes, every piston was broken.
Oh,
Rods well, they were running durability. The rods were kicked out of it. And he goes, I could have found you a better motor, in the Long Beach swap meet or something. And they had and I think it had been air freighted out there for me to work on.
That's funny. I've never heard that
it's
story.
A good motor.
It's
still in the car.
So Christman obviously did a good job.
Oh yeah. Well, Art,
Art knows how to do that.
Yeah,
he does.
Indeed.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And those are the fun parts where everything crosses back over.
And Harry, you were mentioned, was Harry Hibbler, the publisher at the time.
Hand Grenade Harry.
Hand Grenade Harry.
Hand Grenade Harry.
Who seems to be in every other conversation.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, it was, it's a very,
like 5
convoluted
variances
business.
away from Hand Grenade.
Great guy too, and then just a few years ago, crashed his motorcycle. He just finished building this Harley, crashed it, and he almost killed him. And I visited him in the hospital. He's got this giant hole in his leg, and the throttle stuck on it. And he bashed it, and he ran into a post or something. It damn near killed him. And so I went and visited him in the hospital. I said, so I guess we're done with the Harley projects, He goes, oh no, I'm put that thing on the bottom. And I'm sure he probably did.
Who you were talking with?
Oh well, yes, of course. It was Hand Grenade, so he's not about to back off from it.
So, and because I like assuming that there's a lot of people who don't know all the background of all the stuff that, especially you two know, and I've learned enough history being around you. So, quickly, even though Larry is our guest, Mr. Hibbler got his nickname Hand Grenade
from drive, because he would drive anybody's car
in drag racing in the
drag
early
racing,
days.
Top fuel cars especially. So they were most of them were grenades,
which was extremely safe.
Front engine cars, blow up in your face, cover
where your legs
oil.
were under the rear axle.
Yes, you're straddling the rear axle, and it's
he would just go, "I'll do it."
Boy, and he would drive anything. So there was several stories written about Harry's career, and he was also the manager at San Gabriel too.
Yeah.
At the drag strip,
Did he work down at Lions?
I don't believe so. That was Mickey Thompson's track, but
when Pappy took it over,
San Fernando.
San
Fernando. Yeah.
And then he was also in the magazine game for a long time.
Right. He was a great Harry. Great Harry story. So he's when he was still just an ad, so this is before Hot Rod. So I was a brand new kid at CarCraft, and Jim Adolph became my publisher later at Chevy High. But for a while, Jim Adolph and Harry Hibbler shared an office. And so Hibbler put the names up on the door, Adolph Hibbler. Hibler. And that lasted about 30 minutes. Yeah. And the boss came through and said, take that down. So there was a lot of fun going on there. I mean, that's the other side of this, and I'm sure you experienced that. This was a labor of love, what you did, what you penned. Yeah. And with us, we could see the car evolving, and I was on the ride. I was just financing it all, really. And Gray would come in and go, you should go down, look at the car, it's so bitchin'. Gray was such a character. And so all this stuff was happening at the same time. It was just one component, and then we get Randy comes in and tells a story about all the, the adventures in the photography.
Yeah, the photo
and
shoot.
I mean, there are just so many stories that keep coming around to Cadzilla because it was a pinnacle moment.
There's a huge impact to me when that car, when I was following along in the pages, and then when I saw it in Canfield at the Super Nationals the first time, it was like a religious experience seeing that car sitting there, because everything else I'd been around and seen, and of course I was already worshiping everything Scott Sullivan did, and then Cadzilla showed up, and it's from another planet of cool. It's just,
Scott's 55 is another. One of those cars that hit.
Those watershed marked cars.
Coupe, Scott Sullivan's 55, Cadzilla. They were so clean and tight. They just felt.
And it was brought to me by him.
Yeah.
And
and the crazy part about all this is that because there was so much other stuff going on, that it was a job. And I look back at it now and thought, where was I during all of this? Because I was there, I was experiencing, like we were just talking about before we came on air, that we probably met somewhere, but I don't remember, and it was like, there was all this stuff going on. And it's like, I keep thinking like, so what was I doing? But it was running the book. Yeah. And that was such an all encompassing thing. And I've heard other people say this, and people that say, well, what was the most important part about this whole thing, or what would you take, or what would you change different? And the same thing I did was like, I should have paid closer attention to what was really going on, because it was so much of a job that this isn't really special. And now we are 35 years later, and it's like, yikes. It is, and to a whole lot of other people, that and that's the part again that didn't appreciate the breadth of the information that came out.
And we're in another one right now, because the tools you're using, the CAD CAM, that 5-axis, the rapid prototype, all those things like that. I was just over at Mick Jenkins where they're doing a Singer Porsche, the paint process.
The Singer stuff.
But I mean, what you can do to build a car right now is just phenomenal. I mean, you look at a Roadster shop chassis, you look at the drivetrains that are available from those same OEMs that wouldn't pick up the phone call. We went through that start of hot rodding in terms of doing things on the street, which was post-war. Mm-hmm. Guys came back with skill sets and they learned this stuff. And then the OEMs caught on and started stuffing, John DeLorean started stuffing big motors and small Pontiacs, And then that went like crazy. And for a while there, you didn't feel like you could open a 60s hot rod and see a hot rod.
Yeah.
And then in probably the 80s and the 90s, and now with the tools you got, it's doing this cycle,
I have reservation. I struggle with, I see and I've used the tools, and I see their benefits for sure. Better fit and finish of things. I'm going to be using 3D scanning, because I'm going to be scanning some dash parts of an extremely cool dash that I'm going to be putting in a vehicle that it never belonged in. And I'm going to be scanning those parts, both sides, so they fit my dash, but I'm going to be able to change things a little bit. So it's a very valuable tool. But you would be a great person to pose this question to. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think there's a great boon, positive, plus. Yeah. But I also believe in when it had to be handcrafted, when you're forced to do something, diamonds come out from that compression. And now it's like, well, I'll just make my part in here and that'll print it out for me. And now everybody's a car designer. Right. Number one. And number two, what I find, even though the fit and finish level keeps raising, is a lot of higher end builds start looking extremely, got to be careful here, sterile and soulless to me.
They look processed.
They do. Yeah. There's like, I see no human working the clay.
Yeah. Well, you look at a English wheel car versus a tree stump and a sandbag beat car, you know, versus a stamped car. Okay?
Can I use that if I start another shop? Yeah. I want tree stump and a sandbag.
No, you look at all those.
That's great.
You look at all those beautiful Ferraris. I mean, we're helping restore a Zagato body 250. Okay, you know they beat those bodies out in a week. Okay, they didn't have time to goof around. Everything was on intuition,
and
those guys
reflected by the tool.
And those guys were all doing it by hand.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
And so you get a different set of curves with the wheel because you're rolling and constructing the car out of separate shapes. That gets a different shape. Well, these CAD machines and whatever software you're using, whether you're using a NURB software or a polygon software, you know, it's going to give you a certain set of shapes. And if you know what you're looking for and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to lean out, then you'll get something different. But if you're just working billable hours, you're just going to end up with more decoration. You know, and hey, there's cars out there, you know, they're $3 million cars, and they got $3 million worth of billable hours in them. Yeah. But do they have feel to them?
And that's where I'm hesitant to bring in some of the technology, because I like that when you make it, it's got feel to it, and the cars look different when you do that. And I've looked at this stuff coming up, and again, the fit and finish and the quality is, but it feels soulless to me to a point.
It sounds like what you're talking about is emotion.
You could push a button and make another Stingray look like that Stingray.
Well,
you know,
AI programs are going to give you another tool. So it's like, hey, I want a vent for the side of a Camaro that doesn't look like the other guy's vents to the side of the Camaro. So you take a bunch of pictures, you load them in there, and you go, give me some alternatives, you know, and they'll churn that stuff out. But
I don't think that's magic coming from somebody like Sullivan who knows what's going to look.
Well, somebody like you. I mean, it's like that when you put that camera motor in that Mustang. You know, you had a theme, you had an idea, and you chased it down some little rat holes, and you found what was different about it.
Yes, I did.
You know, if you just Googled Shelby Mustang and put that in, then you'd have what everybody else could do.
It would come back something completely
exactly.
Right.
And I don't worry, because I'm going to do the way I'm going to do. And I know a certain group of people within my circles also approach that way also. But I see when you guys were talking, my brain was like evolving, moving forward in the magazine world and the following the features on the new stuff. And it's kind of fewer and far between for me to find a car that's got the magic that seemed to happen prior to the technology fabrication boom. Yeah. And I keep looking for it because I want it. I'm excited about it. I don't care about my crap that I build. I want to see his new one and what came from that mind of wow, you know. And
sure, because that's just gonna tell you or give you an idea of what you want to do next. Right?
And I look at so much stuff, and again, I appreciate quality and workload. I know some of these cars that I'm saying look sterile. I know that there's tons of quality work in them. There's no question. But I'm uninspired by it. I'm frustrated with it. I'm like, where's my Cheese Whiz? Where's my Cadzilla? Where's my Fat Jack's freaking 46? Where's that thing that just makes me go, oh, that's badass, you know? And so it's still coming out. They're there. They're there
around the buildings.
Yeah. I know they're here, but I seem to crave that more, and I don't see it as much on the super high end builds. Well, they're so tech half the time that. Great quote from the very first Jurassic Park. Your scientists were so busy figuring out if they could, they never stopped to think if they should. But technology needs to move forward. I understand this. And like I said, I see the use in the tool. I'm going to take my creativity and use it so I have good fit and fit the project. But it's hard for me. It's hard for me.
It sounds like what is going to happen is the design part of that's going to become even more important then.
because
Well, that's
you
what
can
worries
crank
me
out
when
the-
he said like AI. I'm like, no, I want a Larry behind the digital pen.
One of the worst things you can have is somebody with a lot of money and no personality. Okay, because he just comes in and says, "Hey, all these guys are building these all pro touring. Give me a pro touring car that's better
Yeah,
than their pro
with
touring
vents
car."
and
Well, what do you
wings
really
and
like? Well, don't
spoilers
worry
and-
about what I like.
Yeah.
No, it's.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you know,
You hate that, don't you?
one of the
Because-
best things about Cadzilla was the fact that Billy had a personality. You know, it was very.
Heck yeah.
I mean, his music and
Heck yeah.
and just what
No
he
question.
liked. You know.
Yep.
And so.
Did that factor for you? I didn't ask that
Oh,
because
yeah.
you had already said that
Yeah.
you had looked at the Art Deco train.
Yeah.
I mean, the earlier images of Cadillacs and all.
But
that.
you also know that that it's called Cadillac Records because they bought the guy a Cadillac to get him to sign to the company.
Right.
You know, but you know that connection between the blues and and just the way the music sounded in the cars and the way Billy's music sounds. Of
course.
Yeah. So, but there have been projects. There were lots of projects after that where somebody would come in and say, "Oh, I want to do something," and you say, "Well, why do you want to do it, or what do you want to do with it, or what did you like, or and they got nothing.
Yeah.
So, but the tools will definitely can lead you down the wrong direction. But if you're running the shop,
Well, and thank you. But see, from you, I can imagine. See, you have no fear because you're creative. You can go. I can see.
you're not?
These two. But I have no. If you were running
by
the thing,
already,
you can take all these tools and use that technology to take those amazing ideas and create. There's a lot of stuff that's like, again, it just feels sterile, and I feel frustrated with it, and I should be excited about it. I need therapy. I need to talk about this. I need.
This is therapy.
It is therapy. I'm frustrated with it. Oh, shut up. So take it home, Steve.
it's not whether we can fix you; it's whether we can.
Yeah. I need chocolate. So I do. I struggle with it because I see all this opportunity, but it just seems like Manila. It just, that's great. Beep, 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 beep. It's perfect. Fits great. And it's like, and you'll make 12 more just like it. Who cares? It's hard. It's a difficult life. It's okay.
So we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP and ARP-bolts.com. And we all three build cars. We all work on this stuff. And
I tinker.
You tinker.
I tinker.
Yes, we all build.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of a really cool multiple purpose fastener for me because there's all the science and all the technology, which is bottomless. Trust me. Unbelievable amount of research that they put into these things.
Absolutely.
And on top of it, you get them out of the package, and they're absolutely beautiful. Which I've joked before, it's like jewelry for your car. And when
pre-oiled.
we're building when we're building a high end car, there isn't anything else going on it. It's part of the criteria for me to have them lining the engine bay, not just on the engine, everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
So you get all the strength, the durability, the reliability, and fantastic good looks.
Sure.
Kind of like Jeff here.
And without peer. Without peer.
With,
Anybody
and
else
you
better?
know what?
Or pairs.
Without peer, there's nobody else
Correct.
that does
That
what they
is,
do.
it is. So check them out at ARP-bolts.com, and they can help you out.
So, okay. Well, we worked at Cadillac.
Well,
And
GM.
then, but GM.
They had a bunch of studios.
But was it, who else though? You designed
I
for
worked at Ford's too. Ford's.
Fords?
Yeah.
Fords.
Yeah.
What's a Fords?
Ford's. I had a chance to go to Europe. It's like, hey, I've never been to Europe. I'll go to work for you guys.
Yeah.
No, I worked for Ford for a while too. So, but, and Mustang, things like that,
And that was year-wise.
that was about 99 through 2008. Yeah. Yeah. And, this is a country that's fixated on individuals. It's Michael Jordan or it's somebody. Listen, when you start building stuff, whether it's a hot rod or a production car, it's a group of people. Mm-hmm. And until you find your happy tribe, like running a shop, and sometimes those are, it's full of crazy people doing weird stuff, but it all kind of works.
Yeah.
And so you just keep going until you find the right crazy group, bunch of weird people to do stuff,
Right.
And
Were you cool with your time at Ford?
What's that?
Were you cool with your time at Ford? Did you?
Yeah, it's hard to leave something that you grew up in and then join something that you just joined.
Okay.
And then, I just kept thinking about, and I was sort of getting more towards the hot rod stuff and thinking about that, and, but no, it was good. It was nice working with some of the people, there, and just try different things. I was never a job for life guy. Some of those guys they hire on and then they got a sign on their work desk that says only 3,087 days, to retirement. It's like, no, this is either working and I'm having a good time or it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fortunately, I think younger people these days, it's less of a baggage when you move around. Back in the day, it's like, oh, you're changing, what'd you do? Shoot somebody?
Why are you leaving? Yeah.
But almost in everything, whether it's journalism or shops or whatever, now it's like, what can you add and who do you like to work with? Right. So, but now it's the Bonneville car and having a lot of fun with a lot of people who are working for free.
Yeah.
We're all working for free.
And Model E pickups.
Yeah, Model A pickups.
Kindred spirit.
Right. Yeah, you can never be too low.
Yeah. Is that the motor I built for you?
See, I knew.
Has it got a straight axle going in it or what?
Yeah,
Are you coming out of the altered phase?
No, see, no. Where I'm going to get yelled at earlier, I predicted, is because Jeff was very nice and put together my hottie little 327 because I came to him and I want a tunnel ram. And he's like, oh, I got a tunnel ram. I did a story, and it actually drove great. And I've got the carbs in the tunnel ram, and you can just use that. So I'm like, awesome. So I give him my 327, and he builds a story. So I take it back from him. I'm like, I'm going to deburr the block and the heads. I want to grind it and make it, I just want to dip it in orange so it'd be bitching, right? And we're going to polish the tunnel ram. And he's like, oh, whatever, weirdo. And so I start all that, according to him, probably an eon ago. He needs to get paid, right?
The story's been done.
He needs to hand in the story.
But I can't
Where's
because
the painted motor?
The final photo's not there yet.
Because Strope
hasn't got it done yet.
has been doing everything else. But actually, I've got it like 7/8 ground and deburred. And the tunnel ram's polished, and the fin valve covers are polished.
I have to say that you sent me a picture of you starting on the block, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, it's ground smooth.
Oh man,
it's smooth, baby. Yeah. So and now I've just literally.
So what you're doing is you're making me look good. See?
Yeah, or something. But so I've literally got to finish the front corner of the driver's cylinder head and come around the driver's side of the front of the block, and it's smooth, and then we can dip it in orange and paint it, and everything else has been chromed and polished and ready to go.
Because he painted the motor for my high school car, and I put it back together.
We cleaned up his big block and painted that, and we picked it up. He goes, "That's way too nice."
Again, I can never start it now because it looks so nice.
So it's going to be dropped axle.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
good.
Very, very traditional, like split wishbones, and the guy I got it from, gentleman passed away. He was a machinist. Anal, and an ex-naval officer, anal. And so, when I bought it, I got this little leather satchel from his daughter, and it had, going back 52 years of DMV registration papers. I don't know if that's the entire life he had it, but I know he had it for at least 52 years. And everything I can find on that is Ford Motor Company sheet metal. And it's got an old Culver City quick change in it, which is really cool. Yeah. It currently has a mid-70s Corvette 350 with a pretty lumpy cam in it and a LaSalle 3-speed and juice brakes. So I'm going to convert it to disc. I got to set it, as you know, polished real wheels from Vaughn. I'm going to keep the quick change, but get rid of the torque tube, try to make it a little bit stronger. And I've got the aforementioned hottie little 327. So as you know, because I am very blessed, Larry started doing some sketches for me. So that's really cool. So the car is going to be, or truck, it's going to be hugger orange, all orange, and very 60s show car vibe, chrome firewall. If it's not orange, it's going to be chrome plated. So, but the guy has such a really cool traditional truck that most of the stuff on there I'm going to perfect and clean up. And remove hardware and do everything ARP and TIG weld things so it's nicer. But other than that, I'm going to keep him It's just going to be a little lower.
Well, there's one over in the building. It's a Model A cab, over in the,
Down here at the end of Ford, there's a maroon one, a little Model A pickup down here in the past my booth.
that one out there is low. It's good. It's good.
Is it outside?
3.5 to
Is it
the
outside?
running board. Yeah, it's in the Suede Palace.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I haven't been over there.
Yeah.
I'll have to go check that out.
It's all primer. But
Cool.
It's sitting down there
Sits
where it
good?
ought to be.
Yeah. So I'm running full fenders. I'm just going to run no hood sides. I'm going to show off that 327 in it.
I'm running without hood sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but yours, mine's a 31. Yours a
28, 29.
yeah. You're the smaller cowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. What color's yours? Mine's orange. Yours is.
I'm talking about 3 different colors right now. So. And it may stay that way for a while.
Well, because it doesn't make a car go any faster, right?
No,
This is
but
going to
until a cab gets from Utah or from Nevada to Michigan, and the bed gets from my mother's backyard in California to Michigan, ain't gonna look like anything. So
So what are you currently doing? I'm sorry. Do we got to? We got to go.
We got time.
God
So
dang it.
you know what? This is perfect because
It is?
I mean, we do this all the time. It's like, we haven't covered half the stuff we want to talk to you about. So if we can get you back, we
Can we
definitely
get
need
Can we get you back on?
what's that?
Can we get you back in to recording?
Yeah, I'm here all weekend.
Oh, perfect. Good. Yeah, let's
Excellent.
do
whatever you wanna
stage
do.
2.
So
Stay tuned or
stay
something.
tuned. We're gonna hang on a second.
Yeah.
Don't just run off.
Oh, okay.
So we want to wrap this thing up.
I thought they zoom in on you two and you kind of hug each other. At the
Our
end or
buddies at arp-bolts.com. Yeah, how about that? I'm a professional. Yes, sir. Okay, so we always say that because I butcher it so often, and I don't know why. I just
got it now.
but they're pals of mine. They're good friends of ours.
yeah.
Great stuff. So anyway, so thanks for sticking around with us. Thank you so much for coming,
Welcome.
man. This is
It's been a lot of fun,
fantastic,
Jim.
fantastic.
Run him off. He's coming back on.
And if you like what we're doing here, click the buttons, ring the bells, do all that good stuff.
Hit the
like button.
and
That's right.
subscribe.
That's right. I'm such a dinosaur.
I've learned the words.
And do all that for us, and we'll keep doing it for you.